Welcome to Look Behind the Look, the new podcast that examines iconic looks in film, television, music, and fashion history. I'm your host, Tiffany Bartok. Hey everyone, it is November. Movember. Noirvember. It is time for screeners, award screeners, and the movie that we're talking about today will be a major discussion in the award circles. I talked to our guest, Justin Raleigh, not long after I saw The Eyes of Tammy Faye. I personally was deeply affected by this movie, and I hope you've already seen it. I know most of the people in my world here saw it already, of course, and loved it. And beyond the incredible direction from Michael Showalter, or the mind-blowing performances by Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield, there is, of course, the makeup design and the costumes that everyone is talking about. And all of these things are being discussed with great passion as far as the awards go. And today I bring you Justin Raleigh. He's the artist who was the mastermind behind the special effects for the film. And Jessica's team consisted of makeup artist Linda Dowds, hair artist Stephanie Ingram, and special effects artist Justin Raleigh. His company is Fractured Effects, and it's an incredible force in the industry. Justin is the CEO and creative director of Fractured FX, which is the company behind dozens of films and series. And its most recent project is American Crime Story, Impeachment. That's the show I'm watching now. I don't know if you guys are watching it, but if you're not, these transformations are incredible and you need to binge the whole thing because there's about 2 more episodes left and you're not going to want to miss it. Even if you think you know the story, it's so worth seeing these transformations and the performances. Highly recommend. So learn more about his company online and the exciting things that they're doing. I have a link in the show notes, and learn a lot more about Justin's transformation process in our conversation right now.
I just want to love people.
The devil's coming for me, Tammy.
Can we talk about Satan later, Jim?
Steve is a patient of AIDS.
I can't look at this. You need to get her under control.
I built you an empire.
Built you an empire.
Some people, they're just hurting so bad, and we just need to love them.
I want to put my arm around you.
And I want to put my arms around you, Tammy Faye.
I'm with Justin Raleigh right now. I always forget to properly introduce. I'm with Justin Raleigh, and what brought us together today was The Eyes of Tammy Faye and your extraordinary work on The Eyes of Tammy Faye. But I am stealing time with you. Obviously, you've been doing press for this movie because it's extraordinary. And you're, I think, in the middle of working. Are you working on something right now? No, it's already out. I'm watching it. Is Impeachment. You've been working on Impeachment. It's your latest project that people might also be watching.
Yeah, right now you can watch Impeachment. I'm just thinking of what came out this year for us.
Right.
We had Impeachment, Midnight Mass, which is also on Netflix, Army of the Dead, Lisi's Story this year, Tammy Faye. Yeah, we've had Sweet Tooth came out this year. So yeah, we've had some big ones this year.
Yeah, it's really exciting because I was blown away by The Eyes of Tammy Faye. I reached out to you right away because the second that I saw it, I was crying for 20 minutes straight after watching it. And then I said, who made this happen? And of course, had to talk to you about the transformation that you were so important to. I wanted to talk to you about how you came to the project first. I'm wondering, let's talk about Tammy Faye first, and then we'll talk about you. Okay. So how did you find yourself on this piece with Michael Showalter as the director?
Yeah, so I was actually contacted by friend and mentor Greg Canham, who's a multi-Academy Award-winning makeup artist. Greg is somewhat retired now for the most part, so he came to me. He had been offered the job. He couldn't really do it, at least not all of it, but he wanted to be involved. And he wanted to know if I wanted to be involved in this sort of really heavy character-driven show, not necessarily a big budget movie by any means, and just a huge challenge. So we kind of sat down, we had a good chat, and I remembered, Tammy Faye when I was a kid.
Of course.
I saw her on TV all the time when growing up in the 80s, and my family was definitely interested in televangelists at the time as well. So I have a lot of memories of Tammy Faye and all of that drama that sort of happened during that time as well. So after a conversation and reading the script, I was very interested. It was definitely a hard challenge, just because I didn't know where Jessica wanted to go with Tammy yet at that time.
Okay. So you knew he came to you with the project knowing that Jessica was going to be playing Tammy.
Yeah. So Jessica, she owns the property. She's been involved developing it for over 10 years.
Wow.
And she had kind of started down another avenue, I think, early on in development. And then the show fell apart at that time and got postponed. So when it came back around, she had already had a life cast done. She already kind of knew she wanted to do prosthetics. Originally, Kazuhiro Tsuji was going to do the makeup, and Kazu was no longer available for the show. So it came to Greg and myself to decide if we wanted to make it happen, which we both did. I mean, we knew it was a huge challenge, but it was a challenge that I was willing to take on, and he was willing to take on at the time.
Wow. So remind me, is Kazu from The Grinch? Is that correct?
Yeah, Kazu started here in the States with Rick Baker.
Right.
Kazu recently won an Academy Award for Darkest Hour, the Gary Oldman Churchill makeup. I've known Kazu for a really long time. We've worked together. It's a very small industry. We all kind of know each other and have worked with each other at some point. So knowing he was involved, I knew the level of expectation that was there. And that's why they came to Greg and myself as well. They expected a certain level of quality. And I think for Jessica, being a novice wearing prosthetics, it was a big learning curve for her. So a lot of
that's interesting. Yeah.
She never had before, correct? No,
she had done, little tiny wounds and things like that, but she had never done anything like this. So her first test, she really, it was a shock for her, to say. So.
Was it uncomfortable? And she was the process of it. Yeah.
It's the process and not looking like yourself anymore.
Right. Oh, that reveal must have been really exciting and horrifying. So tell me, now, she always had the same makeup artist, Linda Dowd. Yes. Okay. So she brought Linda to it. And then is that the first time you and Linda worked together?
Yeah.
How was that relationship? How did that work?
It was good. I mean, it was a little dance to figure out how we were going to, who's doing what and where and when. But we talked through that pretty early on. Like, we had a great meeting with Jessica. We decided to take on the project, and then we started doing conceptual designs. And at that point, Linda and Stephanie, her hairstylist, who's also been with her as part of her personal team for forever, 10 plus years or more, they kind of came on board, and we had some initial discussions before we started doing Photoshop designs. And really, I wanted to take Jessica's she had these iconic images of Tammy we knew Andrew Garfield was going to be involved as well in prosthetics.
Poor Andrew. We'll talk about Andrew too. Yeah. Poor Andrew always gets forgotten, but he was he's one of my favorite actors for sure. And I just thought he was wonderful in this. And your work with him was, so you designed those prosthetics also. All of the prosthetics you designed. Yeah.
All the prosthetics. Yeah. So Greg was involved early on with some of the initial, just conceptual part of it, just kind of figuring out process. And he came in as a consultant. He was involved a little bit on the first tests, and then really, my company and my team completely took over at that point, just because he wasn't able to be involved for all of it. But it was great to have, someone of that caliber and that history with these type of makeups being there to kind of help guide us, which was great. Just to have that input.
Did you have to come to him with any specific situations? Were you ever stumped? Was there any Waterloo or challenge that you found?
I mean, it was all challenging, but no, really, I think the challenge was just figuring out how far we would take this. How much do we push it on both of them?
Yeah.
Because it's always the trick with these type of likeness makeups is you don't want to obliterate the actor. You still want enough of the performer to read through. So, you're looking at Andrew Garfield or Jessica Chastain. But it has to be transformative enough that the audience is taken away from who they normally are, and you start being drawn into that story. And I think we found a really nice amalgamation of their own features that worked, that were similar enough that we could try and utilize their own features in some areas. And then we just hit what I like to say the hallmark sort of anatomical elements. Like for Jessica, it's her cheeks. For Andrew, kind of similar with Jim. Jim had big sort of round cheeks. He also had like much harder nasolabial folds. His nose is a little different. So we limited it to a handful of prosthetics on each of them through a variety of different stages throughout the film, throughout the timeline, and try to use as much of them as possible. And all of our testing phase at the early on, we actually had a lot more pieces, and then we slowly whittled away down to just the essential parts that really kind of created the character without disguising them completely.
Right. Yeah, they were always there. There. I guess that's why it's called The Eyes of Tammy Faye, because her eyes were just incredible. So how did you work chronologically in the eras? Did you go at the end? We opened the movie with the most recent Tammy Faye TV appearance, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of the one that I think most people recognize her as now, when she kind of came back into reality television and all that. There's that image of her with the red hair. Which isn't the image of her from the 80s by any means. So we actually started with that because I think that's the freshest memory for everyone. So we took that memory, took that look, found the specific looks that Jessica wanted to sort of nail as close as possible between hair, makeup, prosthetics. And then we reversed engineered the process to sort of youthen her. So we went from that, we designed the middle stage, which is our mid 80s, where she sort of gained weight. And she's, just recovered from multiple kids and also a drug addiction that she wasn't really aware that she was even addicted to some of these drugs. So that had changed her anatomy a little bit at that point.
Right.
And then we dialed it back to her younger look, which was the most it's the most simple look prosthetically, but it's actually the most complicated look out of all of them.
I believe it. Did you ever?
That was the trickiest one.
Did you have to use the software everyone's using? The CGI that ages people?
The de-ager?
Yeah.
No, I think they did a tiny bit in post, and I could be wrong. But she's I think in the early 60s when she's in college, it seems like maybe she's got a little diffusion on her.
Okay, just
but it's not a full CG youthening treatment by any means. We were able to do a lot with just the prosthetics to youthen her. And Jessica, she has great skin, so it was really easy to tie into her. She wasn't carrying any real age, so you're to kind of push her and make it look believable that she's in her 20s or something. It works. And I think with the wig and costume, it really sells it. So they didn't have a lot. And honestly, like I said, this is not a big budget movie, so they don't have a $200 million budget where they can go and do youthening. So this is do you there's think really not room for any of that touch
error? Yeah. Okay. So that is something that's budgetary, that you say we got to nail it. It has to be right. Okay. And then you have a team. How big was the team that was working on her to apply the prosthetics?
So in her stage one, I established the look with my key, Kelly Golden, male Kelly. And Kelly carried all looks. He was there for every single look. But as we were building other looks, I would have to go back to Los Angeles to kind of continue at my studio, where at my studio, I had about 25 people on the project, just in various different manufacturing aspects to it.
Wow.
Because every single day that she works, that's a new set of prosthetics for every single day of filming. So you're talking, 90 sets of appliances between all the different looks, and it's a lot of pieces. It's a lot of molds. On set, I had for her basically 3 people. So myself, Kelly Golden, and Chris Hampton. Chris and Kelly applied the majority of her stage 1 look, which is from the 1960s to into the 70s, beginning of the early 80s. I was involved with some of those, and I established the look with those. But then I come in, and Kelly and I do stage 2, which is mid 80s. and then stage 3, which is the 1990s stuff. Those were both Kelly and myself for those applications.
So the first look, phase 1 was the up until puppets, and the
it actually goes up until kind of the beginning of PTL. They're really kind of taking off at that point. So it's the majority of the 60s, 70s, and just a bit of the early 80s. And it's really that transition where they just become mega and they're filthy rich. It's that transition from they're really successful to mega rich, and she's kind of gone through, she's fallen into drug addiction, all those other kind of things at that point. That's where that transition sort of happens. So it's like 84, right? I guess 83, 84, kind of right before they get busted and everything falls apart. So that's her middle stage there, which is larger cheeks, a full neck, chin piece, still nose tape. She has a prosthetic to kind of soften up her labial roll, her lip line, to get that looking smaller, to age her a little bit. And then when we time jump, the next look then appears in 93, I think is the year. And that's her stage 3 prosthetics, which is full cheeks again, chin prosthetic, upper lower lip, full neck. And then we also did stretch and stipple around her eyes.
Wow.
And all looks also have like a little piece of invisible tape to kind of pull her nose up.
Oh, that's a trick.
It's just when you're looking straight on at Jessica, like her nostrils are kind of hidden. Yeah. When you pull the tape up, Tammy had more visibility into her nostrils. So we would actually tape and pull her nose up. And it was basically a little piece of opsite. I don't know if you know what opsite is. It's medical tape.
Okay.
And it's very, very clear. That's what they use a lot of times when they close up a wound after surgery. They put that clear membrane over the top. That's opsite. So it's really, really thin. And I would just cut it so it had this wavy pattern to it. So it was never a straight line. And then we would anchor it on the tip of her nose, pull it up, press down the tape, and then we would do stipple with prosthate over the top of it to texture it and hide it. So she has that at every single, and that was actually, I'll give credit to Greg Canham for that. That was just sort of an out of the box thing that he mentioned. We're like, okay, yeah, let's try it. Because normally we would do a prosthetic or we would do something far more complicated.
A whole nose.
Yeah, we would do something totally different, or like nostril plumpers or something to sort of change the anatomy. And this was just a very simple trick that he kind of pulled out of the box and handed to us. And we're like, okay, yeah, let's try it. And it worked, it worked through every shot. So,
oh my God, that's fabulous. So, how does that stay then? It's keep maintaining
really strong adhesive. It's incredibly strong. And then we're stippling adhesive over the top of it. So it's sandwiched in there with adhesive. It's pretty bulletproof.
So comfortable. So
it actually, I think she wouldn't even really notice it. At first she would feel the tension and then your body sort of relaxes into it. It's got enough give to it that it kind of, you have to actually overly pull it and then your body relaxes.
I see. A little bit. That makes sense. Yeah. Oh my goodness. What was your favorite look to work on?
I think her latter stage, so that 90s sort of look, was just the most big and bold out of all of them. But there's stuff in the mid 80s, the scene where the whole Jessica Hahn story comes out when they're sitting in their house and Jim's kind of spilling his guts that he did this thing, and now they're basically gonna get sued or whatever's going to happen. I think her look in there and that sort of gold outfit is one of my favorite looks. It's a really simple look, but I just think she looked really good in those shots.
Well, that's what I really noticed about the work, is that it just wasn't cartoony at all. And the evolution was just it was like a real woman's evolution of a face, and it was so authentic and seamless. And sometimes I would look at her and just be like, she was really pretty, and you guys really captured that and that's part of the reason why I think nobody's it was never a mockery. It was never a mockery.
And we were really careful about that. And Jessica was really careful about that. She never wanted to portray her as a caricature.
Yeah.
It had to feel real. And if anything, we wanted to lean into her beauty because she really was a beautiful woman. She did a lot of sort of garish things with her makeup sometimes that a lot of people would consider as just way over the top and extreme. But there are times where she's very dialed in, very glamorous in her looks. So we wanted to just find a happy balance there and not lean into the overly garish kind of looks. It's there, but tasteful. And we didn't want to do the crazy, mockery with the mascara and all those things with it. We really wanted to show
the falling of it. Yeah, did. Yeah. I did notice it never ran. Yeah.
It does run a little bit in some shots. There's a few shots where it does start to run.
Naturally.
But we didn't want to do the big crazy thing just because it's been mocked by comedians since the 80s, and we wanted to steer away from some of that stuff. And we just felt Jessica in particular really felt that it would just take away from the story that we were trying to tell of, she was really a bit of a manipulated woman in a way. She didn't really understand the gravity of everything that was going on with Jim Bakker. And, she did to a point, but I don't think to the extreme level of what was really going on.
What the movie was great at is it being all from her point of view. So then, you always say, oh, she had to have known and she was complicit and and so judgmental, but really telling the story this way, I was like, I get how this, he just came home and was like, guess what? We're screwed, and I can see how it just escaped her. I just get it, not knowing where you're getting the money, you just spend it, you don't really know.
And I would say as someone that grew up with them on TV, I had that same sort of thought pattern that they were just criminals and crooks. And just,
me too.
She was just as shady as him. But walking away from it, and after all the research I did, just in developing the character, I had a totally different view of her at the end, and had a big appreciation for what she really did, because she really did. She touched a lot of people. She touched the gay community. I mean, she was a mover and a shaker, and she was really breaking the rules within the religious community at the time. With the AIDS pandemic and everything that was sort of happening at that time, she was really out there and really trying to just do what she should do in that position, just try and help people and encourage people to help each other and be there for each other. And that speaks volumes about who she is as a person.
Yes. Yeah, that totally came through. And the pity that I felt for Jim was shocking to me. I had no idea, I would ever walk away feeling bad for him, and I really did. I thought Michael Showalter did an amazing job. I've always liked his work. It's really fine, and I was like, okay. And then when I found out he was directing this, I was like, oh no, I'm afraid that it's going to be over the top. And he did such a wonderful job, I thought.
He did. Yeah. I think not really working with him before, I didn't really know what his approach was going to be. But I think the tone that he set and kind of the intermixing of real footage with a lot of the recreation that we did, it's really well done. And it has a documentary feel in some ways, which is great. So it feels very grounded and it feels very real, which I think helps suck you into the story a little bit more and make it a little more believable. But also just the acting across the board is just fantastic as well. I mean, Jessica, Andrew, Vincent, everyone, Cherry, they were all just incredible.
Cherry Jones. Did you have to do anything to her? Or was this her face?
The only thing that was done from our end of it, Greg Canham came out because he was a huge fan of Cherry.
Can't deprive him of that.
He did her oldest look where you get a little of the flash of her in the car where Tammy realizes that she's died and she's getting this vision. And then he did her makeup for the funeral as well. So he did her latter aging looks for all that kind of stuff. But that really, we had planned doing prosthetics for her and her father, and even for Vincent, we had talked about doing prosthetics.
Oh, you didn't?
We didn't. So Vincent doesn't have anything. He's just a wig, and that's him.
Oh my gosh.
And really, the only people that ended up with prosthetics were Jessica and Andrew.
Wow.
So that was also a really tricky thing where, a lot of times in these big character-driven shows, there's quite a few people that are in prosthetics. So that for the audience, I think, look, you want the prosthetics to look as seamless and as natural as possible, but there can be a level of I don't know, separation. I think people can sometimes recognize when somebody's in prosthetics because they know it's no longer that person anymore that they're used to seeing. So having a cast where your main two are in prosthetics, but nobody else is in prosthetics, can be a little challenging because for us, we have to make it so clean and so precise and so subtle that it reads just as natural as everyone else. And you don't have to push the lighting. You don't have to do anything to kind of balance it, because it's all an illusion what we are doing. And it takes lighting and costumes and proper hair and makeup and everything to kind of pull this thing together. And the way you light a prosthetic can be a little different than how you light a regular human being. So for our DP, it was very tricky for him because he was inexperienced working with prosthetics. So he had to learn that balance of how do you work with light, where you have some actors that absorb light one way because they have prosthetics versus real skin where they absorb very differently. So it's very tricky.
I would never have known that he was inexperienced shooting it, because I wouldn't have known that Vincent, for example, didn't have prosthetics. I thought it was great.
Yeah, no, he worked really well.
Oscars, can you call me? Like I'm
yeah,
I'm ready to vouch.
He wasn't opposed to wearing prosthetics by any means, but we kind of looked at it and we're like, well, what are we going to do? Maybe we'll change his nose. It was so minimal, and he brought so much to the character himself. And once you put the wig on him and put him in the suits, he sold it himself.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. The most challenging, I would think, would have been that finale when that was lit really garishly. That must have been really hard.
Yes. Yes. That is never a flattering scenario for prosthetics or regular makeup in general. Having a spot, because we had a true stage spotlight on her.
Yeah. It's like a Judy Garland setup, right? When you can always tell, like, oh, she's 150 now because of this lighting. Right.
And it definitely does some things to the prosthetics. We really had to pump up the color. There was a lot of things that we had to do to compensate for that lighting. But overall, I'm happy with how it turned out, because that was truly, honestly, one of the last things we shot as well.
Oh, really?
But it was a very scary moment and a very long day, because I'm just looking at the lighting going, this is going to look great or it's going to look horrible.
Oh my God. So
and luckily it turned out really well, and her tone reads well. I think there's certain angles she gets a little bit washed out just because of how hot that lighting is. And she also wears a lot of mica based colors, so it's got a lot of refraction to it. So she's got a lot of sheen on her cheeks and a lot of really bright stuff. So that light on that, we had to kind of dance to kind of figure out how much of that we could really use, because it would get so hot that you would get a refraction in the camera. You'd get a hot white spot.
Oh, wow.
So we had to really adjust how we were approaching that makeup compared to how we did her other looks, just to get that to read in that hot spotlight.
Oh my God. That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, she's also wearing a full white dress, so that's just even more filler. Yeah, it's definitely a tricky look for makeup.
Challenge checklist. Yeah. It's like it checked off every single box. Oh my God.
Definitely one of the toughest ones. And like I said, really her hardest looks were her youngest looks, just because they're little tiny cheek pieces that are just floating in the middle of her cheeks. So they're very critical on how you have to apply them. There's not a lot of landmarks to them.
Right.
And then little tiny chin piece to just fill in that little thing. So it's more her in those early looks. And that actually makes it more of a challenge, because now you have more edge problems, or you could have more edge problems because there's more visible. You don't have a place to kind of tuck it in the shadows. Whereas she gets into her middle and latter stages, same with Andrew as well. We could kind of, instead of having it way down in her cheeks, we could kind of get the edge to come up into the hollows of her eyes. And anytime you can put a blending edge into a deeper area, a hollow within the anatomy, it visually just helps it disappear on camera, because there's a shadow to make it go away. So
oh my God.
Those early looks were very tricky to keep her looking pristine and not show edges on any of the pieces. So.
Wow. Well, you are a genius. Oh my God.
I've got a phenomenal team around me as well to make all this stuff work. So without them, it just, I'm the captain of the ship, but I've got a lot of great crew that really pull this thing together for me.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Always.
What, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you in LA? Are you in?
Yeah.
Okay.
My studio is based in Los Angeles.
Always?
We're actually in, yeah, always. We've always been in LA. I'm originally from Louisiana.
Okay.
So I was born in Louisiana, and then I'm California transplant. So I've been here most of my life at this point. But yeah, I've been in the industry. I started doing professional makeup actually when I was in high school. I started working for a photographer doing print and fashion when I was like 16.
Color and
yeah. And I was even doing hair as well. I went to cosmetology school. I did all that kind of stuff. And but I always had a passion for prosthetics and makeup effects. And pretty much right out of high school, I started working for Stan Winston and some other really big effects companies at the time, and really kind of built my education on the ground floor, a lot at Stan Winston's and another company called ADI, Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated, Steve Johnson. So I kind of made my rounds at all the shops for about 10 years. And then I started my own company in 2005. And that lasted for 5 years. Then my business partner and I separated, and I started Fractured in 2010, which has been just, I think, a better experience for me because I can just handle it the way I want to handle it. And yeah, Fractured has really, I would say, drastically grown, especially within the last 5 years. You know, we just luckily keep getting these amazing properties that are brought to us. So
so you say property, so it's like an IP, like a whole project will come your way and you figure out how to tackle it.
Usually when we are hired or when they approach me for a job, you know, we are taking on the entire series. It's not like we're coming in to handle one piece of it. They're coming in to really partner with us, knowing that it could be multiple seasons. And we help develop the looks from the ground up for them. So yeah, it's most of the time we don't do a lot of just one character here and there. It's full shows, you know, that can last years usually.
That's really smart, and I feel like it's gonna like help you with longevity because you just aren't gonna get that burnout, right? Yeah. And for Impeachment, so you took the whole project on for Impeachment for the FX show. And then are you making Sarah Paulson look like that?
I am not applying her look. I was involved with all the tests, but because she literally shot 100 days in prosthetics, there's no way that I can run a business and be on set for a show like that. Because we shot on that show. Well, we started on that show right after Tammy Faye. Actually, we started beginning of beginning of 2020. So it was end of 19, beginning of 2020, we started the process, started doing test makeups, and we got shut down right before COVID.
I remember
literally
about
that Friday we got shut down. Monday they were supposed to start filming her look. So that postponed that until September of 2020.
Okay.
We came back to it. We ended up redesigning the makeup. Sarah and Ryan had time to kind of sit on it, and they decided to make it a little more subtle. So we did a few more tests, completely redesigned her look, and then she shot 100 days in that. It was almost a year of filming. I mean,
I had no idea.
Super long. It's because of the COVID shutdown, it was almost 2 years that I was involved with Impeachment. But we did Sarah Paulson's look. We did Annaleigh Ashford as Paula Jones, and we did Clive Owens as Bill Clinton.
Great job wonderful, great job. I was shocked. I wasn't even going to watch because I was like, I know the story by heart, blah, 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 blah. Guess not, because this is Linda Tripp's story. I feel like I get it. It's finally, again, with explaining and completely shaking up myself thinking one way and growing up in this whole media narrative and then getting completely twisted around. It's incredible. And she looks amazing.
Yeah. So she's just amazing. This is kind of my second time on doing a big prosthetic type of thing on Sarah.
Oh, really?
I did American Horror Story season 4 Freak Show. I did the conjoined twins for her.
Amazing.
So that's a combination of visual effects, but we also built animatronic heads for her that she wore.
Okay. No big deal. Yeah, just making robots.
Yeah. But I would say this was probably more comfortable for her to wear, except she was stuck in it all day, where, with the other one, the animatronic, she could take off. With this,
my God, how funny. She would just take off the...
Yeah. It was definitely a big challenge. Again, this is the nice thing is it's actually a good conversation jumping off from Tammy Faye, because it's the same team. So Kelly Golden, who I mentioned, who was with Jessica, also did Sarah Paulson. So it was Kelly Golden and Chris Hampton, two of the same artists. And then Chris Hampton and Tom Flouts, who also did Andrew Garfield, they did Clive Owen. So it's exactly the same team, same involvement across the board for the most part. It was a nice sort of just carry through. We went from one hyper realistic show into another hyper realistic show.
Wow, what a ride!
So they were already, pushed to the extreme on Tammy Faye. So when they came into this, they were ready for the same level that we needed to push for this. I don't think any of us were prepared that we would have to do it for a year straight, though. So.
I know. And then in the middle of COVID, when everything is completely shut down, you were probably working your asses off like 24/7.
Yeah, we were shut down for about 4 months. My studio was, and then once we hit the ground running, back in September, end of August or something like that, it was just busy for us at that point.
Never stopping. And now you're going to have an Oscar. I know it.
I don't know about that, but it would be amazing just to kind of be amongst all of those people in a bake-off. Yeah. I'm not sure who's in contention right now, but it would be amazing just to get recognized for something like that.
I can't tell yet, but that is just the first thing that I was thinking the whole time. I was just like, this work is extraordinary. I'm so honored that you took a second to talk to me, because I got to ask you all of the questions that I was wondering as I was watching. Good. Even though I didn't think of the question, I was totally in an escape mode while watching, and then just thought of the questions later. So it was like the perfect viewing experience. Yeah,
I was actually surprised, because usually I have a lot of trouble watching my own work. Sure. Because I just have the makeup lens on, and I'm constantly looking for flaws and errors, and you name it. It's just very distracting, and you can't really enjoy the movie. But I would say just their quality as actors completely sucked me in. They're just so good in their performances, and the script is so good that I was just pulled into it, and I kind of lost track of what I was looking for, which is pretty rare for me. So I need to go back and watch it again. I actually want to go back and watch it in 4K. I want to watch it in the most extreme scenario.
Oh my God, that sounds like you're just going to take a magnifying glass and look for all of your...
Pretty much. I will say, I went and saw the film, and then somebody had told me that there was a first look for Tammy Faye with a little EPK interview for me on HBO. So I went that night and checked that out. So that was actually in 4K. Okay. And I actually felt like our makeups looked better in 4K than they actually did on the big screen, because I felt really like interesting. Yeah, normally I would never say that, but I think what happened, at least the theater that I went to, I felt like there was so much diffusion between projection to screen that you lost a lot of the little subtle nuances and the little textural differences in her skin, where once I watched it in 4K, like you could see all the pore structure, you could see all the details to her skin, and it to me it looked more natural, it looked more realistic seeing it in that resolution, opposed to the diffused movie screen. So.
Whereas like us women, we just want to see ourselves as a Polaroid with like the most the most filters and diffusion possible.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Well, Justin, thank you so much. I'm so happy you're being recognized for this amazing work, and there's going to be so much more to come, and I'm going to have to call you again and get ready for me to be asking you more questions.
No problem. Always happy to do these interviews, and always happy to explain our approach and answer any questions that you or your fans may have.
Oh, thank you so much. Until next time.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed our conversation. I loved having it. I could have talked to Justin all day about the 95 million movies that his company and he are working on. We'll be seeing a lot more from him, and I'm really, really pulling for an Oscar win for the eyes of Tammy Faye. And with that, I leave you for now, and I will see you next time. Look Behind the Look is a Vinyl Foot production, written by me, your host, Tiffany Bartok, produced by Jace Bartok, edited by Nicole Tucker. If you're interested in learning more, find our video version on the YouTube channel, Look Behind the Look Podcast. There you can see rare photos and clips from our guests. And please follow us on Twitter at LookBehindPod and Instagram at LookBehindTheLook. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. And tell your friends and spread the word. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or any podcatcher of your choice. Thanks for listening to Look Behind the Look.